Hello. In my tasting today, I wanted to take a look at a brand that is one of the leading dark rums in the world, and is perhaps the most popular spirit in a category known as IMFL, or Indian Made Foreign Liquor. The brand is Old Monk's XXX, very old vatted 7-year-old rum. Now, looking at the label there, this really has some quite old-fashioned presentation, and this is a company that famously conducts no advertising for its brand. So really, the brand's image still reflects its foundation in the mid-1950s, and its popularity depends almost entirely on word-of-mouth recommendation, on the loyalty of its customers, and what's perceived as an affordable pricing strategy. Although I should say that while for many years this has been the top-selling Indian-made foreign liquor in India, actually in 2013 it was overtaken as the largest selling dark rum in India by McDowell's #1 Celebration rum. Nonetheless, it's a brand that's endured since 1954, produced by Mohan Meakin Ltd, and with a reputation for its distinct, smooth, sweet flavour profile, and with a reputation for a really good price to quality ratio. Now, Mohan Meakin are a large Indian business group based in Ghaziabad in Uttar Pradesh, but they have a vast portfolio and a number of production locations in other states throughout India. They have both brewing and distilling divisions, but also interests in foodstuffs, in mineral water, fruit juices, glass making, the production of ice, cold storage, and associated engineering. So I think it's fair to say there's a certain amount of vertical stretch there in their enterprises. Now, the company can trace its origins back to 1830, when somebody called Edward Dyer moved back to India from the United Kingdom, and he brought both brewing and distilling equipment from England and Scotland out to India with him. And these were brought by ship as far as possible up the Yamuna Ganges River, before being offloaded onto bullock carts and being transported from there on upwards up the Grand Trunk Road to Shimla. And Dyer set up what was his first brewery in India, in Kasauli. This was incorporated in 1855. Now, at this stage, Kasauli was a small cantonment that had been set up in 1842, there in the Himalayas, by the British Indian Army. Now, Dyer chose this location for his brewery, principally because of the quality of the spring water, and also because the climate at this quite high altitude he felt was similar to that of Scotland, and actually one of his aims was to produce a malt whisky as fine as any made in Scotland. I guess also the other reason for citing first the brewery and then eventually a distillery here was the availability of customers in terms of the British Army and the British civilians associated with them, who were located both here, also in Simla, and elsewhere in Punjab. Now, on this location, Dyer started producing India's first beer brand, a beer called Lion. Eventually, Kasauli became a town, and the town's demand for spring water was such that Dyer chose to relocate his brewery to the nearby town of Solan, which was also close to Simla. The Kasauli brewery, however, went on to be converted into a distillery, and this is a distillery that is still owned by Mohan Meakin, who produce Old Monk, and today this distillery is believed to be the oldest operating in Asia, and claims to be one of the oldest whisky distilleries with a history of continuous production anywhere in the world. Now, in 1887, somebody called H.G. Meakin came out to India from Burton-on-Trent in the UK, where his family were well-established brewers. He founded Meakin Co and purchased both the Simla and the Kasauli breweries from Dyer. Meakin also went on to build other distilleries further afield. Following World War I, the two companies actually merged and became Meakin and Dyer, and then following Indian independence in 1949, somebody called Narendra Nath Mohan bought a majority stake in Dyer Meakin, thus acquiring all the company's assets, including the Kasauli brewery and distillery. Old Monk rum was officially launched on the 19th of December 1954, although I have seen some sources that suggest it may have been first produced in 1935. Maybe that was another rum that predated the actual brand. In 1966, the company became Mohan Meakin Breweries, and then in 1980, that simply became Mohan Meakin Ltd as they expanded their interest. As far as the production of the rum is concerned, they emphasise the fact that this is an absolute organic product with no added artificial chemicals, simply being produced from molasses derived from sugarcane with water and yeast. So the production involves fermenting this combination of water, molasses and yeast to produce a wash. This resulting wash is then distilled in column stills, which increases the alcohol, creating the spirit. That spirit's then aged for a minimum of 7 years in oak casks. They do say these are often ex-sherry casks. The rum is then blended to achieve what they see as a well-balanced flavour profile, and the spirit will be diluted to a strength of 42.8%, which evidently is 75% proof. And it's the use of oak barrels for its maturation that really defines the flavour profile of the rum, giving notes of vanilla, caramel and smoky hints. Now there are various variants of Old Monk rum that are made. Principally their flagship is this 7-year-old vatted rum. They make a 12-year-old rum which is labelled as Legend, and then you see another 12-year-old blend which is often marketed in a really quite distinctive monk-shaped bottle, which is known as Old Monk Supreme. There's also a white rum and various speciality flavoured rums, such as the coffee rum or the spiced XO. And they do make blends of the rum that include spirits that have been aged for up to 30 years. They suggest that the rum is best served neat, on ice, in classic cocktails, such as a rum old fashioned, or with cola. So I think actually the point there is that this is quite a versatile spirit. It's trying to be smooth enough to ensure that it can either be drunk on its own or to be used in cocktails. So let's take a look at the rum, shall we? First thing I'd say is it has a wonderful colour. It's a lovely depth there. Swirling it, it has good strength, not surprisingly. It's forming some very clear tears on the side of the glass. I will pop a little bit of water in there before I taste it. Let's just nose it before I do that. There really are some pungent caramel-like notes, notes of vanilla, other sweet spices, maybe a hint of ginger, and there are rich, almost raisin-like notes on the nose. Let's just pop a tiny amount of water in there just to try and open the aromas up. There are some slightly more delicate aromas revealing themselves. If I was talking about a whiskey, I'd almost say that this was heathery. But you still have some very distinct caramelised notes, I guess, from the molasses. And an almost sultana-like fruitiness. So that's for taste. On my tongue, that's lovely and smooth. There isn't a burn at the back of my throat. The texture is rich and smooth. It's coating my tongue beautifully. Again, you're getting those caramelized notes right down the center of my tongue, which move through a sort of a dried fruit note, something like sultanas, and move on to give some smoky, cedary notes on the finish. The flavors develop quite slowly and they're quite harmonious. While there are slight sort of maderized touches, hints of candied peel on the finish, this is not by any means the most complex style of rum you will come across. What it is, however, is it's smooth, it's harmonious, it's very approachable. Now, there isn't a Wine Searcher aggregated critic score for Old Monk rum. Personally, I would score this at 90 out of 100. It's well made, it's harmonious, and its quality quite clearly over-delivers on its price. So that you can see pricing and you can see if it's available near you, I will leave a link in the notes at the bottom of the page to the Wine Searcher webpage for this rum. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you found the tasting of interest. If you have, it would be fantastic if you could press the like button at the bottom of the page here. If you're watching these tastings and you haven't subscribed yet, could I ask you please to consider doing that, because having your support would help me develop the channel further. To that end also, if you have any friends you think might like to watch the video, do please feel free to pass it on to them. I'd really appreciate your endorsement in that way. If you have any comments about the tasting or questions about the product, do please feel free to pop those in the comments box below. I'd love to hear what you think about the tastings I'm doing and the products I'm looking at. So thank you once again for joining me, and I do hope that maybe you'll manage to make some time and come and join me for another tasting in the very near future. Till then, bye for now.